So just to summarize what we were holding, where the Vayomer is at this point. So the Vayomer is explaining how is Mitzrayim described. Mitzrayim is described, the Eibishter says, V'anoichi ale eschem me'one Mitzrayim. I'll take you out of the poverty of Mitzrayim, al eretz zovas cholav udvash, to a land flowing with milk and honey. So Mitzrayim is described as a state of anius. As the Gemara says, ein ani ele bedas, ein osher ele bedas. True poverty is in the mind, and likewise, true wealth is in the state of the mind. And in the whole process of Yetzias Mitzrayim, even after leaving Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's a journey from journeying from a state of spiritual impoverishment to Eretz Zovas Cholav Udvash. We did Es Gimel, after Es Dalet. We're up to Es Dalet, right? So the Vayomer explained, and along the way, Amalek attacks, which is to be addressed later, what the Milchama with Amalek is, and why, till that Milchama is not successfully waged, so neither Hashem's name or his throne is complete. But now he's explaining, and he had explained the meaning of Anius, that Anius means a contracted place, where the person's mind is petty and small, and the emotions are petty and small. And there's all arichas, which you won't repeat, in explaining the anius of the mind and of the heart. What's the objective? Where are we going? The other extreme is the land flowing in the milk and honey. So explained that cholav and dvash both go on pnimius hamoichin, tainuk. Both are associated with delight, tainuk, sweetness, and expansion. Honey, sweetness, and milk, which causes the child to grow and expand. And that's shmur toibe tedash and otzem. True expansion and expansiveness and broadness is as a result of tainug, and that's what the child has to be weaned on all levels. The child needs to feel the delight, the pure delight that the parents have with this child, and that is its primary nourishment, begashmius and beruchnius. So, in detail, he explained, one is pnimius chacham, first explained bina. Pnimius bina and pnimius chacham. Cholav is pnimius of chachma, and bina is pnimius of bina, and that's where the tainug lies. When the chacham is in a pnimius way and bina is in the pnimius way. And he explained at length, what does it mean? A pnimius havana means you're not learning about something, but you really grasp the truth of the subject itself, which is the difference between Elam Haza in general and Gan Eden. Here we learn about God and then experience God. But he's talking to us in this world. So I didn't address this yesterday, but it's the obvious, as the stories that we told yesterday, Rabbi Zusha, that there's learning and there's learning. There's learning where one gains knowledge, technical knowledge, and then there's truly learning in a way that one grasps and experiences and truly internalizes the truth of the subject. And only there is the true gishmak, the true tainuk. Likewise in Chachma, which is epiphany, he didn't elaborate, but it seems that external Chachma is a rational epiphany, and a pnimis dika Chachma moment is when you actually see the truth. Not that you've discovered a truth with rationale, and that's why you've discovered it. Not that now it makes sense. It's now I see it. There's a difference. There's the epiphany of now I understand, makes sense to me. That's chitzonius of Chachma. And then there's an epiphany when he actually sees the truth. And that engenders the true tainuk. Only when it's what? Pnimius of Chachma and Pnimius of Bina, that's cholav udvash. That's milk and honey. Cholav being Pnimis HaChochma, and Dvash, Pnimis HaBina. Right? As explained in relative length in Ois Gimel. Now we're up to Ois Dalet. No.
I think we stopped at the top.
Yeah.
When we call
Top of the page, Mikol Hanal moving. That's where we're up to. Yeah. So all of the above, which we just not summarized, but just addressed, from all the above, it's understood. The Eretz, the Inyan Eretz Chol V'Dvash Meir Ala Moichi. So from all the above, we understand that the land of flowing in milk and honey is Moichim Pnimis HaMoichi. Shalamaylim Yamidas higher than the emotions. Not just Moichim, but the Pnimis HaMoichim Krishim Boifin Shal Yisrachvus. But Pnimis HaMoichim, where it's broad and expansive, that is what we mean by, which you referred to earlier, an expansiveness mitzad ha'oir. What's that? In the Seichel. Illuminated, broad, Pnimis Dike understanding. Then there's Misrachos mitzad ha'kelim. And what is that? So Cholav Udvash is what is Moichem. But the general edits, the good and broad land, embraces also the union of Kelim, all the way down to Malchus, as in say this, but all down to Machshava Dibur Maisa, where the person's behavior, and not just in mind, but feeling all the way down to behavior, is a very broad not, in Yiddish, the word expresses it best, verquetscht, petty manner. So that is the goal, to reach Eretz Zovas Cholav V'Dvash, meaning the mind is engaged, the Chachma level of Bina level and most Pnimisdik way, engendering the deepest Tainug, and that embraces the entire totality of the person down to the good and broad land. Eretz being, in general, the incarnate of Malchus. Eretz is the earth is the receiver of life, the nurturer of life. Malchus, that's the bottom line, birth, Machshava Dibur Maisa. Point being now, what we need to get to is the furthest possible state of the poverty of Mitzrayim, which was what? We said before that it's the oil is impoverished because there's no seichel, there's no understanding of what is there only the people believe, but that nothing beyond that. And we explained earlier, kelim means that even confronting inspiration, still remaining unmoved, unable to respond. Shortness of breath also means shortness of ruchnius, and being so caught up in the avodah of Mitzrayim, so they're not even responsive to inspiration. That's how it was then. Where do we have to go from there? And instead of this, the redemption must culminate and does culminate in the absolute broadness. And mitzad kelim, that's eretz tov rechava. So, as I said before, the kelim means the midas and the pel mamish, the good and broad land. Mitzad oiris, and also mitzad oir, which is eretz conveyed in the words eretz zavas chol v'dvash, which is pnimis hamochin, pnimis of chachma, pnimis of bin. Right? The general idea we get. Everybody. Good. Now is Dalet. From the perspective of the order, the natural order of things, one cannot go in one moment from one extreme to the other, from the aniyas of Mitzrayim to the broad, expansive state reflected in the Eretz Zovas Cholav V'Dvash. Can't happen that way. Rather, there has to be some intermediary stage. Likewise, in our case here, there was a general statement. to go from the poverty to the sweetness and so on. There must be time, there must be an intermediate stage. And what is that? So in between leaving, connecting the bridge between Mitzrayim and the land flowing in milk and honey is the 40 years in the desert. Now, even we go question and answer. And even though we do find that there can be dramatic change from one extreme to the other without an intermediary stage of progression, namely, for example, tshuva can happen in an instant, in 1 hour, 1 moment. The Rambam describes in Hilchos Tshuva, Emesh rather. Yesterday, this person was sonoi, hated and rejected by God. And today he's beloved, v'nechmod, and desired, korev, near, v'yedid, and dear friend. So that's a radical change. And how do you do it? This is because tshuva has this intensity and intense power that the tzaddik doesn't have. So why are we saying that there needs to be insisting an intermediary stage? Answer. If it stays that way, it's also not permanent. Then the tshuva is going to be a makiv diki tshuva. Makiv means it's a momentary experiences, but not internalized and therefore not permanent. Even this radical tshuva, which is in order for that to be sustainable and drawn into his conscious faculties of the mind and the heart, so even after that radical decision, it can be a radical decision. The radical decision invokes the rotzen, that's a keich makiv. It's a will, no more. And he tears himself away from his past and sets himself on a radically new path in life. But still, for that to endure, that decision itself, the rotzen has to be filtered and drawn into keiches pnimiyim, to the mind and the heart. In the words of the Maimon, there's a radical decision, but it has to be followed by an orderly avodah. And therefore, what do we find? That after the Tshuva of Tisha, it's a beautiful explanation here. It's very intense, greater force than Avodas Tzadikim. And it's 1 moment, Yom Kippur is 1 moment. And a person can make this transition from one extreme to the other, but it can't stop there. Tishrei must be followed by Yaakov going on his way, translating this in the way of Torah mitzvahs, throughout the year, in an orderly, structured way. Only then can the radical and heights of Tishrei endure and make real change. So likewise here, to go from the niyas of Mitzrayim, the poverty of Mitzrayim, to the Eretz Zavas Cholav Dvash, there has to be this intermediate stage of ascent, progression from one level to the other, and that is Adei Alicha Bamidbar. That was being in the Midbar, which initially would have been for 1 year, but still it's a considerable time. Now he explains, what was the Avodah in the Midbar? Lechtech, Hashem praises us. What did we do? Zachati lo chesed, I remembered your kindness of your youth. I'm going to quote this in Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. In Zichronos, Lechtech achrei b'midbar, you followed after me into the desert. So the diak is achrei, you followed after, behind me, after me, following me. What's the diak? This is similar, this idea of achrei. Achrei avadekechem telechu. You should go, follow God your Lord. And then you should cleave to him. and in his name of Ishmael Tishaveya, as he goes on to say, Hainu Shechdei Love sof the Tachlis Aved the Tachlis Hadveikos. So the pasuk concludes, which I just mentioned, the Beisid Vokan. You shall cleave to him. That's how it ends. Before that, follow him and swear in his name, and then cleave to him. And that's the ultimate extreme. As we described, the milk and the honey. But before that has to be what? A relatively chitzoniistic avodah. So the chli is haschol of akdom bazer the avodah the achra v'alikechem telechu lechtech achrei the beginnes achorayim v'chitzoniis. In order to get to the chol of advash, which is, he said, pnimis hachachma, pnimis habina, and the tainug, there has to be a relatively external avodah, which is going to explain, which is the link from the radical decision to leave Mitzrayim, the radical reorientation, which is really the rotzen, koyach makif. That has to be, for the koyach makif to be drawn in the pnimius, in the way of cholav advash, there is this bridge, which is relatively external avodah, which the mind will explain. But it's conveyed in these words, Achrei v'alikechem telechu, and that will lead to achrei, follow after or behind him, invoking the notion of hinder or behind, and that leads to veisid vokan. But what is this avodah? So first you have to understand, what do you mean chitzonius? What place is there for chitzonius? That's the question now they say. What does this command? Follow after God, behind. Is invoking externality. Mekuva means the hopeful, the hoped for avodah rather. The hoped for avodah, the avodah which is expected of us, is dafka pnimius, not external, but internalized. This demand of pnimius began right then and there with Matan Torah. What does the pasuk say? Ponim el ponim dibra v'alikechem. Hashem spoke to you face to face. So pnimius, this is not only for people of distinction. It's every year. As you know, the reason why the Aseret Stibis begins with in the singular. All about the Torah, including this face-to-face God speaks to you. To whom? Every year. So it starts off with Pnimius. All of a sudden now, furthermore, when you say not only Matan Torah is the avodah of Pnimius, you might say, okay, then it starts with Pnimius and then it somehow morphs into a stage which is Makif. No, the avodah thereafter also must be Pnimius. And I in righteousness, which is in general Torah mitzvahs, behold your face. Pnimius. Why the rest of the quote, where this is, I don't know. It's interesting that he does. Rabbi Eliezer Yoy Prutele Oni, on this pasuk the Gemara brings, I behold your face. With what's the tzedek righteousness? Going on tzedakah and going on all mitzvahs, but a practical thing. Rabbi Eliezer used to give a pruta to a poor person, and then he would only daven, which is what we do. We give tzedakah before we daven. Omar, he said, if the pasuk says this, Ani b'tzedek, it's through b'tzedek, echse panecha, I behold your face. But what's the avodah? Panecha. Your face means a primitive connection. By the Shaschola, somebody say, the whole avodah every day begins with that. He gives tzedakah, and thereby he begins the process of ever deepening primitive connection. In order to behold God's pnimius, there's only one way. You have to serve God in an internal, pneumistic way. Like the pasuk says, my heart says to you, search my face and you will see. Search my pneumis and you'll see I'm seeking your pneumis, as we learned. As we learned the Mugadik Maamer from Tafshin Chaf Aleph. So this is al derech hapanim and Matan Torah. This is all reflecting the panim and panim that began, that is stated with respect to Matan Torah. It was then that we got this ability. Al avodah shlachar is there. The avodah thereafter that should be dafke b'pnimius. So this is all buttressing the question: what does it mean? And what does it mean that we're saying now that that's the bridge between leaving Ani Mitzrayim to Eretz Zavas Cholav Advash? Now another question and answer. We're saying now that this is in our question, but the pasuk says in this week's parsha, Kisisa, Hashem says to Moishe, you will see my hinder part and not my face. What are we saying now? That even Moshe Rabbeinu, who was holding at the highest levels, could not behold Hashem's Pnimius. So why are we insisting now that Avodah has to be the Pnimius, which is part of our question? Answer: because that Moshe Rabbeinu said Davke ben Gedin Yodiyah, to see godliness, and to see godliness in the way of prophecy, when the prophet experiences prophecy, it's like actual sight. Why the Arizal was able to speak higher dargis than Moshe Rabbeinu's nevuah explains the length in Tanya, because Moshe is actually experiencing it, and the Arizal is talking about it, so he can talk the highest dargis. That's the kids what he says there in Tanya. Moshe Rabbeinu, he experiences the what's already Netzach and Hoid of Atzilus. Now he's also Chacham Atzilus even higher. But the point being that when we say Varisas Achayrai and not my face, that's Varaisa, but not Avodah. Avoda's got to be Pnimius. When it comes to experiencing and beholding, so there taka we cannot behold the Pnimius of Likus. Only to behold and experience my hinder part, Netzach V'Hoid, explains that in Tanya. But that, we're not talking experiencing and seeing. We're talking about God being revealed to us. We're talking about our devotion to Him. But we're speaking about Avodah, not Nevuah, prophecy, where God comes and talks to you. But you devoting yourself to the Eibush, the Bakshul Panai, it has to be seek my inner, and through a Pnimis Dik Avodah, we then connect Hashem's Pnimius. Being in Zet, so at least that's called Yem Vayomer, that's demanded every day. So all concluding the question, what is the inyan, the being in the desert? The 40 years, that this is the required and desired Avodah that links, that's the bridge between the radical Yitzias Mitzrayim, which is Makif, and the Pnimisdik objective, Eretz Zavas Cholav Advash. Questions clear? Yeah? Yeah. Achinyan ho. But the matter is as follows. In order to have a primistic connection with the likus. So it doesn't go like that. Just by one thing. There has to be, it's just going to explain the avoid of achre avalekechem telecho. First, this chitzon is dik avoid. And what is that din yedua? Sheklola say the ishtalshalus abayfim the panim v'acher. All of ishtalshalus has an inner and an external dimension. Every level has an external level and an internal level. Moishe Kosef, the pasuk says, Yechezkel, the Navi says that a scroll appeared. Hashem gave him a scroll which he had to actually eat, consumes it. And this scroll is described as Megillah Ksuva, a scroll written, Panim va'ocher, literally front and back. Pnimis v'chitzonius, at pshat level, the Rashi explains there that the scroll describes and explains history of the Jewish people that passed and also what they're going to face. But he is understanding it at explaining a much deeper level. These words, Panim va'ocher, this Megillah. Megillah means Lashon Giloi. Hashem is revealing to him a likus, and how is the likus revealed? In a way of Panim va'ocher. It's every level has the pnimis and chitzonius. What is that? There is, friends, let's speak simple English. What does Oiris v'kelim mean? On every level, there's two dimensions. It's at once Hashem revealing himself, and then there is the way he's revealing himself. So the Oir component is God expressing himself. The Keli is in what particular manner he does. The Shorsham, the Shem Yisakdoshim, and the source of Oiris v'kelim throughout all of Ishtalshalos in the holy names of Hashem. Hem Hashem is Havaya Likim. Havaya Oir and Likim Keli. Or Kecha Blik Gvul and Gvul. Infinite expression, contained expression. Now, the Kivin should call Seder Ishtalshalos Nivra B'Shvil Yisrael. Why is there a Seder Ishtalshalos? It's all because of God's desire for relationship with a Yid, K'maimer. Bereishis, like the Medrash says that Rashi brings, Bereishis, two Reishis. B'Shvil Yisrael, Shenikra Reishis. The world is created because of Eden and Torah, and first Eden and then Torah, because Torah is there to serve Eden. So since what? Since the whole creation is all because of Hashem's desire for relationship with us, these two levels of Pnimis and Chitzonius, Eres and Kelim, exist not only in Ishtalshalos but by the Neshamas Yisrael, which the Maimon will explain. Let's finish this Ois. That's what the pasuk says in Tilim, referring to the creation of man. Atem Kurim Adam. The Yidden are called Adam. Ocher v'kedem sartani. You formed me. These two words, Ocher, meaning behind, and Kedem, Kadima, forward. Pnimis and Chitzonius, or shield me. You shield me. Both the hinder level, the Chitzonius level, the Kedem, the Pnimis level. So therefore, mitzad zeh shebris adam bebeifin shesh b'yachar v'kedem kedem. A person is created with external and internal dimensions upon him. So therefore, yeshnam gam beis eifane avoda. Necessarily, there has to be two kinds of avoda, because the whole person's got to be engaged. And a person is not just a pnimistic entity, but he also is created with an external dimension. So that too needs to be part of the avodah. Avodah be'ofen the achrei avaya. That's the external avodah, which the Bible goes on to explain. Avodah be'ofen the ubeited vokun, and in him you shall cleave. Shezem etzad apnimis. Bakshu ponais penech havaya vakish. So both avodah is necessary. Mitzad zen nasegam kol seder shtalshalos. And because a Yid's made that way, so the other way. That's why Ishtalshalos is made with Eires in every level as Eir in Keli, Pnimis and Chitzonius, Panim va'ocher, Pnimis v'Chitzonius. So, I'm just looking ahead, but I haven't learned yet, V'yuven, and then Obira Inyan, Rapi kol now Yuven, and then V'yuven behektim. So, the Bible will go on to explain what this Inyan is, the Avodah Chitzonius, Avodah Pnimius, and why the Avodah Chitzonius is the critical bridge and stage to the Eretz of Aschol V'Dvash from Ele Eschem Oni Mitzrayim. Right, friends, Be'ez Hashem, to be continued on Monday, right? Because Friday morning is already Shabbos by me.